my life is a cyclone, pretty much. It doesn't stop moving. A couple weeks ago, I said to my wife, like, do I just thrive on chaos? Like, is this the way it's going to be forever? Because when it rains, it pours. When it's sunny, it feels even sunnier. Like, it's just nonstop ups and downs through business, personal, etc. But at the same time, like, I always think about, like, would I really want it any other way?
That's Greg Davidson, the co-founder and CEO of Lalo. And this is Make Yourself at Home, the podcast that takes you into the homes of people you admire to show you a side you don't usually get to see. I'm Kristen Twyford, and every week we'll talk to someone at the top of their career to explore holistic success and how work and home are inextricably intertwined. Along the way, we hope to inspire you to live well, whatever that means to you. Make Yourself at Home is presented by Nines, the household management app designed to help you manage your home and everything that comes with it, so you can live with ease. Today, we're in New York City, where Greg lives with his wife and 2 young kids. But when Greg and his co-founder Michael Wieder had the idea for Lalo, a baby and toddler brand known for its beautifully designed high chairs, play tables, and strollers, neither one of them had kids. Over the past 3 years, Lalo has exploded, growing by 400% in 2021. And Greg's personal life has changed right along with it. In this conversation, we talk about choosing chaos as an entrepreneur, raising kids in New York City, and how Greg's personal and professional roller coasters took off all at once. Make Yourself at Home with Greg Davidson. Greg, welcome to Make Yourself at Home. Thank you so much for having us into your home. And to start out, just tell us a little bit about your home and what you love about it.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. It's really great to be here. What I love about my home, I mean, we live in Manhattan. We have, my wife and I, we have 2 kids here. And one of I think my favorite things about my home location is we happen to live on the West Side Highway, and in a place where you traditionally don't get to see much green or, general just sky. We get to walk a lot on the West Side Highway. We have a little sliver of a view from our apartment. And so, like, those are the things that to me, are extra special, just being able to go outside and get some semblance of fresh air in a place where traditionally you don't get too much of that.
Yeah, you mentioned you have 2 little kids. I'd love to talk more about raising kids in New York City. I feel like so many people have left the city during the pandemic, and you guys have stayed. Yeah. And I know you had your kids during the pandemic. What kept you here? What made you feel like this is the right place for us and for our family? It's
a good question. We've started to make a ton of friends, right? So, our kids are starting to get friends, and that's always a nice thing. I think our choice to stay actually has been more of I don't want to say this, but I feel like, right, you learn pretty quickly when you become a parent. I think you become so selfless, right? You're waking up at 6 a.m, 5 a.m. You're sacrificing your own, working out or just certain things just to make sure your kids are going to sleep, they're fed on time. Like, you sacrifice those things for yourself. And so I think, at least for now, where my wife and I are at, is that there's only so many things that you can kind of, especially in these early days, you can kind of protect for yourself of things that you really love. And so I think, my wife and I, at least, like I said, for now, have made the decision that, this is the one thing we can be a little bit selfish about in deciding where we live. Ultimately, that's our choice for now, and not our kids. And obviously, there's so many good things to do for kids in the city, but it's as much a decision for us and kind of, the way we want to live for now as it is about what's best for them right now.
And at this point, you've lived in New York the whole time that you've been parenting. I think a lot of people look at people who raise kids in New York and they say, oh, it's so difficult. Yeah. What have you done to sort of make your life easier in the city? Or, do you find that it's not that difficult? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's that difficult. Like, there's nowhere to get into a car. You're kind of just walking around there. There are parks, there are playgrounds, there's ice cream shops everywhere. So there's pizza places everywhere. So I think Within a hop, skip, and a jump, I think you can do almost anything in New York, and that goes the same for kids too. So I think for us, it's been a little bit more manageable. Obviously, space is like the biggest thing, and so just finding enough space is always a challenge. But outside of that, it's been pretty good.
And in a very timely coincidence with you being on this podcast, you just published a book. It's called A Little Book About Home. Tell me about that and how it came to be.
Yeah, so Lalo, which is the company that I co-founded, we partnered with a company called A Kid's Book About, and now it's called A Kid's Co. And so their first book was called A Little Book About, or A Kid's Book About, racism. So talking about like really hard topics. They recently launched board books for little kids. So a little book about a variety of different topics. So my co-founder and I thought it'd be really awesome to be able to kind of co-write some books together. So I wrote a book, my co-founder wrote a book, and then we wrote a book together. And it's been really cool and just an awesome partnership for us.
And in the book, one of the pages of the book says, home is where you feel the most like yourself. Do you feel like that's true for you? Do you feel like that's the place where you're most yourself? Where do you feel the most at home?
A lot of the points that we hit in the book is that like home can kind of be anywhere. It's anything. It could be with anyone. I think like at this point, like even though I was just complaining about the 6:30 a.m. wake ups, like there's times when you're just like, your kid wakes up at 6, there's really not much to do other than sit on the couch with them, play with them. It's kind of like a surreal thing. There's really like the earth kind of stops at that given moment and you're very much in the moment, even if it might be a fleeting 20 minutes until they get up and start doing something crazy.
I want to talk more about that and sort of being in the moment. But first, I want to kind of back it up and talk about Lalo and sort of these parallel journeys that you've been on. So you're known as the co-founder of Lalo with your co-founder, Michael. You help make life easier for parents with strollers and high chairs and play tables. You launched in 2019 and your business has absolutely exploded in the last few years. And at the same time, your personal life has really changed a lot right alongside your business. So kind of walk me through the timeline and how those two things have been intertwined.
Yeah, it's amazing how intertwined they are now. And we're so not intertwined at all at one point. So, we launched, like you said, in 2019, but we started working on the business in 2017. And I think, funny enough, neither my co-founder or I were parents at the time. In fact, I wasn't even married yet. Right around that time, I was registering for my wedding. So we were registering for pots and pans and knives and all that other, fun stuff. And I think, as I infamously say at this point, you when you go to buy those things for the first time, you've probably like cooked an omelet. So you have like a base of understanding of what you'd want, why you'd want it. And when you go into the experience of shopping in this category for a baby, you don't know what you need, why you need it, when you need it, what the thing does, and any of the brands that existed. And so it felt like this incredible inflection point that people go through, that there were so many brands, there was tons of fragmentation, and that these brands were really preying upon that vulnerability of not knowing. And these brands had built great products historically, but they were really known for just one product, and they weren't really carrying through with that customer throughout the journey of parenting and also the journey that the children go through and the different milestones they hit. And so we sort of said, okay, how do we flip this on the head? Not that we care deeply about our products, but how do we build this brand that's really carried through without, and then also delivering products across those critical milestones? And then, that's how we kind of, stumbled into it. That was the initial thesis. And, here we are, 3.5, almost 4 years later.
And at the time, you mentioned you didn't have kids. How did people react to that? How did your family and friends react to that? Where they said, were they surprised that you were getting into this business?
I think they were actually recently at dinner with a friend, and she had just gotten pregnant or just at the time. And, it's like someone who's like very close to me who would never tell me like, oh, I think that's a bad idea or something. And, even she was like, even at the time was like, what the hell are you doing? But, she never told me that until, 3.5 years later. But, I think it's like one of the interesting things about Lalo is, number one, I think a lot in the category, right? There's been this whole built up of, I'm a parent. Look, parents do know best. Like obviously people talk with parents all the time about the struggles they're going through. It's an amazing community. But also, if I were to think about most products that I see, on like Shark Tank, I always say like, 7 out of 10 are from like, I'm a parent. I personally have this problem. And so I'm going to assume a lot of others do. And there probably are a lot of people do have a similar problem. But I think when we took a look at parenting in general, there wasn't one type of parent. There wasn't one problem. We were taking a look at kind of the holistic parent, and it allowed us to be really objective, taking a look at what are the needs of everyone and not just like focusing on one problem and how do we solve that. So I think that was really interesting. Also, I mean, at the time, my co-founder and his wife, they were married when we first started it, and we started like raising money and telling people about the business. And they were having, issues with, infertility, and actually having a baby. Right. So we would go to people, and, my co-founder, eventually got so fed up, and he was like, look, if biology was on my side, I'd actually be a parent right now. So like, it's not, you can't just say like, it's not for lack of trying. It's not for lack of not wanting kids. It's not like we're sitting here saying we don't want kids, like we're starting this brand. We're just completely opportunistic. People, obviously we were being somewhat opportunistic not having kids, but you don't know everyone's story.
And you guys were told no a lot early on because you weren't parents, right? When you were in those investor meetings. How did that feel? And especially for your co-founder, like that had to be a very tough time.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't easy at all, and we raised from a lot of different angels just to like get the thing off the ground. But look, I think eventually when you talk to parents, the kind of message that we had really resonated, regardless if we were parents or not. The feeling of being overwhelmed is something a lot of people can relate to. The feeling of being confused while shopping in this category, and so. Those were the things that really, really drove it to like, people to understand like, oh, this actually does make a lot of sense. There's something here, which eventually, we kind of, blew the lid open, which was awesome.
And if you think back to that time, what did your definition of success, not just with your business, but just in your life in general, look like to you? What were you striving for in your life?
It's funny. It's a funny question because I think entrepreneurs, the definition of success is so undefined. Like I still actually don't know what it is. I mean, right. It was when we were a small business, I was like, cool, we got our first check. And I think what you find is those moments end up being more anticlimactic than you ever thought they were. And so I think my version of success continues to change and evolve. I think the most important things, if I was like thinking about my life, is obviously, feeling happy, confident, comfortable, just like where I am. However, I think, given you have kids, you don't have kids, where you live, like there's so many things shifting beneath your feet at all given times. And so I don't think there's one thing outside of like obviously feeling that level of comfort and happiness, or striving for that as much as possible.
Can you think of one decision that you've made along the way that has been really key to your happiness today?
What is one decision I made that's been really key to my happiness? Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't say like I'm a control freak person, but especially when it comes to my kids, I feel like, I hate when they cry. I'm like, oh my God, like this has to stop. Like it's brutal listening to them. And obviously, and it's more brutal because like I'm in pain for their pain, whatever pain they're going through. And I think my wife has done a good job just like reminding me like they're just kids. Like this is how they express themselves. And so just like letting go of the fact like they're just kids has actually been something that has been a huge learning for me of just like general patience, let people go through the motions of what they need to go through. And that you can't really control every situation. People, regardless regardless, kids or not, have just like different ways of reacting to things, same as adults. And I think I've really learned through like, listening to that through my kids, kind of like how to remain patient throughout other parts of my life as well.
Well, I want to get back to this timeline. So you started thinking about the business in July 17. You got married shortly after that.
November 2017. Yep.
And then you launched in 2019. Your business grew. And then you had your first baby. So kind of walk me through this whirlwind that you were in, both business-wise and personally. So especially on the personal side, how did that how was that intertwined with your business?
So like you said, so started working on July 2017. I was still at my full-time job at that time. I got married in November 2017. And I guess the first time it was really intertwined. It was still like, I just started working on it. It was, 6 months in. My brother, during his best man speech, said, "There's a hat in the back if anyone wants to invest in the company." And at that time, the brand was actually called Momo. It wasn't even called Lalo yet. What kind of unfolded was like my life just started to progress like right alongside the business. It's like, I launched the business in 2019. I had that baby. Then I guess in July 2019 is when, my wife and I found out we were having our first kid. And then of course the pandemic. So in many ways, like my, from like launching the business, my wife and I, obviously she getting pregnant with our first kid, they've really just kind of gone hand in hand, which is really surreal to think about. I've never even like thought about it like that before. Also just like being an entrepreneur, having kids through COVID, it's been pretty crazy, roller coaster for sure.
Tell me about that pressure of all of those things happening at once and sort of the support you got from your family and sort of how you got through all of that at the same time.
Yeah. How did I get through it? I wish I could tell you I knew exactly how I did, because sometimes it's like a little bit of a blur between not sleeping, working, the business, like not having enough cash, then raising money. There's like all these peaks and valleys that happen. I think it's just like, my wife has been incredibly supportive. My mom has been incredibly supportive of just like the business. And, but I think honestly, like, and this is not, without their support, I couldn't have done it. There's just something that like, we were never afraid to quit. Like I was never afraid to give up. Like I never would give up on this. And it was a little bit of just like, honestly, like being a founder is incredibly difficult, but it's also, you have to be like a little crazy to do it. I feel like I'm a little bit of that crazy of like, man, you just have to literally persevere. I usually say to like other founders, the companies that think about thriving first are usually in trouble. It's really all about, can you figure out how to survive first, right? You always have to put surviving before thriving. And so if you have that mentality, like not every company is going to hit a home run within the first year or even the first 6 months. And I think that's most people's like envision. It's like, oh, we're going to launch the business. I put in all this work and it's just all going to work out. And that's never how it happens. And so when you think about the survival part first of like, how are you going to get through those first couple of years? And that's personally, professionally, like, are you actually ready for this? That's where I feel like, a lot of like the real companies that have been, winners throughout history have really, kind of came to be.
Your son was born in 2021, right?
April 14th, 2020.
Okay. So your son is born April 14th, 2020. Yeah. Then in 2021, your business grows by 400%.
Yep.
I can't imagine sort of that whirlwind. You've got a newborn at home. Your business is absolutely exploding. Did it feel like a whirlwind? Did you feel like things were just moving so fast?
Yeah, my life is a cyclone, pretty much. It's just like it doesn't stop moving. I actually a couple of weeks ago I said to my wife, like, do I just thrive on chaos? Like, is this the way it's gonna be forever? Because when it rains, it pours all the time. When it's sunny, it feels even sunnier. Like it really is just nonstop ups and downs through business, personal, etc. But at the same time, like I always think about like, would I really want it any other way? Would I really feel the same kind of about myself, about life, if I didn't have that nonstop, something changing constantly? It's like many ways I think like I look back and I'm like, I kind of designed it this way, regardless if it was intentional or not. And yeah, I'm not sure how much that will change. I hope there's a point, and like, anytime I have gone on vacation in the past couple of years, which has been minimal, but where you like can really take a step back. But yeah, I think it's kind of just how I thrive at this point, at least for now.
Yeah, I love that you said when the sun shines, it's even brighter, because I do think when things are chaotic, you feel things so much more intensely. Do you feel like there have been certain moments where you're just like so on top that you felt it even more?
Like that I felt it even like sunnier at that time. It's a good question. When my daughter was born recently, I mean, obviously that was like such an incredible, moment. Had a second kid. Business is in a much different place than, was when I had my son. We launched just like a year ago. So, and so like, I think like that moment is like a quick moment of like reflection of like how much you've done, how much time has gone by, and also how little time has gone by at the same time, and to just kind of be, to take yourself out of your day. Like I say it a lot to our employees, like, when you're knee deep in the shit, it's really hard to look out. And so there's so few moments that you get to like give yourself the 30,000 foot overview of like what your life is like. And I think that's a moment that I think about where, you are able to pull yourself out and you're able to kind of give yourself like that level of perspective.
Mm-hmm. Thinking about sort of small moments in your daily life, you mentioned earlier, just waking up early and playing with your kids.
Yeah.
What are some small moments or rituals that make you kind of slow down a little bit on a daily basis, or things that you're really kind of striving to make time for because they really are helping you be in the moment?
I would say before my second daughter, like making sure I woke up just to like go work out, like things like that. Very key before my second child. So that has definitely slipped a little bit since that. But I think I know it's like going to sound silly, but like, the 6:30 wake up thing, I think that is like really the moment that I try to like savor. Like I don't even have my phone. Like it's not even near me. It's just like I'm sitting on the couch watching Paw Patrol with my kid. And I've seen every episode 100 times at this point, which is starting to get a little bit painful. But like, you're so zoned out to the rest of everything. It's like most of my employees, I hope, are sleeping. And, it's kind of like things stand still for that like 30, 40, 45 minutes. But yeah, I think like, I know not to say that that's the only thing, but that's kind of like one of those times where, I actually appreciate it much more. Even though you have to maybe get up earlier than you would want, but I appreciate that moment.
Definitely. And I heard you say on a podcast a while back, that moving forward, people are going to prioritize quality of life at least equal to or even more than their salary. So thinking about your own life, how are you what are you making time for your own quality of life? And then do you still think that that's true? As you look around and you see your employees and your friends, do you think that they're starting to prioritize quality of life the most?
Well, I mean, one of the things, maybe just like given like the life stage I'm at and it's like having kids, I think you start to see people prioritize things just like naturally a little bit differently. Like we rearranged the time of this podcast so I could go pick up my son from school at 12 o'clock. But I generally think, I was someone who traditionally was completely anti-work from home. I was like, how does anyone get anything done? I was in the office at 7:30 or 8 a.m. And obviously the pandemic hit, changed everything, completely forced everyone to get adjust something new. And now I am like, not that I don't like going to the office, because I do believe that you can get a lot done there, but like I'm on team work from home. Like it's something I never thought was possible. And that has afforded me, I remember very distinctly before I had kids and being at all my jobs. Obviously, I was in the office, 5 days a week. And, you'd see parents who were like leaving at 5:30 for bath time or worried like they wouldn't get home, and just like these small moments. And I was like, what the hell is this like religion, this religion called bath time that all these parents are leaving for? Obviously, I completely didn't get it. Obviously, now I do. And it's something that like I don't, have, I feel like obviously there's certain times I have calls, this or that, but I don't stress about, potentially missing it. And that's not something I'm really, for the most part, willing to give up. And also now 2 kids, it's just like all hands on deck. Like I need like 5 more hands if I had them. But yeah,
So thinking about it, how do you decide what's worth your energy and what's not? Now you're an entrepreneur. I'm sure it is impossible not to take your work home with you, and you're actually working from home. So of course it's going to be on your mind even when you're at home. How do you decide, okay, I'm going to spend time on this and I'm not going to spend time on that? And how do you kind of balance, certain moments and prioritize certain moments at home?
It definitely is. It's a day-to-day challenge of what I'm not going to bring home. I think I'm lucky. My wife works in e-com as well. So while I don't know if we could ever work together, because I just think, at least for us, that would be difficult. It is nice that it's kind of part of our conversation, like a very friendly way where she completely understands the things that I'm going through. I understand the things that she's going through. And so I think I do bring work home, but it's in like a space where at least my partner kind of understands what I'm going through, which is really great.
And she married you knowing that you wanted to be an entrepreneur and that you were starting to build this business. Thinking about that life of chaos, do you think she was bought into that from the very beginning? How did that come up early on?
I do think so. I'm like, my wife is very go with the flow. I'm not as the go with the flow. And she just kind of was like, whatever you got to do, you got to do. I think everyone thought it was like a little bit crazy, but the thing that I remember telling her that I think is really true it depends on the type of entrepreneur you are, but there were certain things in my career I hadn't done yet, or that I wanted to do, or I felt like I was being pigeonholed to like one type of role. And as an entrepreneur, right, you want to experience many, many things. And so what I really believed, just given my belief in myself, and I had told her, was I hope that regardless if this succeeds or fails, and obviously the chance of failure when you're an entrepreneur sometimes is way higher than the chance of, real success, was that I would meet enough people, I would learn enough things that I would be able to potentially go and do something else in my career that I wasn't afforded the opportunity to prior. And I think that was the thing that, at least for her, maybe resonated the most, where, I was it was my opportunity to kind of search for where was I ultimately going to be happy, because at that time I was kind of getting tired of kind of the path of my career and the trajectory it was on. It was on a great trajectory, but like I felt like, again, I was kind of being pigeonholed in one type of role, and I wanted to kind of flex out of that. So it was really about, I think there was a certain, of course I wanted to succeed, but a lack of caring really on the outcome, and more of this person, if it was going to be success, great, but this personal growth opportunity to kind of see what else was out there.
And now that you are your own customer, you really understand the challenges that parents have. Has it changed your passion for what you do in some way, or changed your commitment to the mission, or has it sort of impacted, how you think about the challenges that parents have?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's nice to have like an internal product tester instead of, before we had kids, like putting weighted stuffed animals in our products. But you gain experiences with products that we don't make, and say, oh, well, is this something we could make? So that's nice. But I think my passion has not changed. I think like that overlaying kind of problem that we saw is still a problem that we have an opportunity to go out and get. So I love the fact that I have kids and I get to actually use these products in a much more intimate way. I get to, we get to test them really thoroughly and things like that. It's definitely a huge benefit. But the overarching problem that we saw that still faces, parents today is I'm, just as passionate today as I was then.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about your home and the home that you want to create for your kids, how do you want your home to feel for them?
How do I want my home to feel? Very comforting, warming, obviously like incredibly, loving space. I think those are like the intangibles. When I want them to think about home, I think that's the way I'd love them to think about.
What does a meaningful life look like to you today? As you're looking forward, what do you want for your life?
What do I want for my life? I want to continue to feel challenged. I want to be able to try new things and new experiences. And, I want to make sure, my family feels comfortable. And that is through, I think pieces of it are financially, but really just, regardless of where we are, we're together and people feel kind of like that like level of safety that you always feel like, when you might give like your parent a hug or something like that.
Awesome. Well, I want to get into our lightning round of fun questions. Cool. And to kick it off with Lalo, your goal is to make life easier for parents. We love to talk about living with ease. That's a big theme on our show. What's one thing that you guys do at home that makes your life easier? It can be a product, a service, a decision that you've made about your home, anything. What makes your life easier?
Coffee machine. Without the coffee machine, we'd be screwed.
I get that answer all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's
necessary.
It's critical. It's so necessary. And a good coffee machine, like not like the old school, like Mr. Coffee, like the one that's in like your, like the crummy hotel room, like just, it's worth it. It's like a mattress. You literally using it every day without fail. It's got to work. It's got to fuel you. It's critical.
I mean, especially with a 6:30 a.m. wake up call for Paw Patrol.
100%. It's critical.
Has it increased in importance since you had your kids?
Absolutely. No, without a doubt. I was always
what do you think you would have said before kids? Would it have been the same answer?
What would I say? Like, what's the one thing in my home that I can't? I don't remember what it was like before kids. Everything's a blur at this point.
Do you remember where you lived? Was it a totally different environment?
It was somewhat similar, just on a smaller scale. What was one thing? Product, service. Oh, I'll tell. I mean, this is actually true. I was like very much obsessed, like early on, of like having like a connected home. So my like lights that I could flick on with like Alexa, turn on the lights. I was like, I just like walk home and just say everything. I for some reason, as I've gotten kids, those things, it's like I still love them, but they're not as important as the coffee machine.
How has the feel of your home changed pre-kids and post-kids?
Well, shameless pitch for Lalo. The idea is that your home shouldn't change too much just because you are becoming a parent. These products should still look beautiful. You don't want to hide them. However, I have kid shit everywhere in my home. Lalo products, obviously some non-Lalo products for things that we don't make. It's just stuff everywhere. Like this morning, I tripped over, my son has 2 fake drills that he just like is drilling things all. I tripped over both of them. There's just shit everywhere. So I'd say that's been like the biggest thing that has completely changed. There's always a cleanup to be done. There's always a cleanup to be done now.
Yep. What's your most hated household chore?
I'm not a great cleaner. I'm not a great cleaner at all. I love to cook. I hate the dishes. I'm like that level of for some reason, it's just like painful for me. I don't know why, but I can't stand it.
I understand. What's your favorite room in your home?
Being in Manhattan, not too many rooms.
Right.
So my favorite room in our house is my son's room, actually. He has the best room, I think, by far. It's like all windows. You can like see everywhere. It's really cool. My personal favorite room, if there were no kids around, I would say my living room is probably the best. Like the couch is great. Like it's great. When everyone's home, you just need a quick, I have to say like my bedroom, because that's the only place to fully escape for a minute when I need to. Yeah.
If you had a magic wand, what's one thing that you would change about your home?
I make it bigger in Manhattan. But that's just a hard thing to ask for. But if I had a magic wand,
have that answer.
It wouldn't even be a question. Maybe like a little outdoor space outside of my apartment. Just bigger outdoor space. I'm just trying to move up in the world.
What's one pro and one con of raising kids in New York City?
Con, space, pro. I guess I'll just be brutally honest. I think the pro is like, I don't know, I grew up in the suburbs. I love the suburbs. I really did. Like, I loved my childhood. Who knows, I might end up there at some point. But, I don't have to go to like that same like Italian restaurant that every single person goes to every single night. There's just something new, something different. And that I think is like my favorite thing, is just the level of variety, experience that like I get here in the city.
Mm-hmm. What's one thing that you do when you're feeling stressed?
What's one thing I do when I feel stressed?
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a walk on the West Side Highway. I'd say that's like a pretty good thing that I'll do.
Mm-hmm. What's your household pet peeve?
My household pet peeve. My wife has a ton of pet peeves of mine, so it's interesting that I get to finally maybe cut some shit on the other end. There's gotta be one thing. My wife always keeps like backup rolls of toilet paper near the toilet, which sounds really normal. For me, I'm just like, there's already one on there. Like, why do we need one, like the extra to be? I understand it's easier access. We don't have to, but there's something about just like the act, just like looking at toilet paper rolls. I'm like, we could put this away.
That is a very specific one. What is hers for you? What's her pet peeve about
everything?
you?
Everything. I'm messy. My shoes are everywhere. Throw my clothes on the ground. They'll forget to pick them up. There's a million. You should have her on. It'll take her an hour to talk through all of them, but that's okay.
Well, maybe she can come on next. Speaking of that, who's one person who you think really lives well that you would love to hear on Make Yourself at Home?
Who lives well?
Yeah. Somebody you admire who you think lives well.
I'll tell you the type of person. I would love to know. Entrepreneur, probably lived in major, urban area historically, and then just like completely fell off the map and is like somewhere completely random. And why? Like, what were those impetuses that like made them want to kind of just completely uproot and change their life?
Yep. Do you ever think about doing that?
No, but that's why I'm curious. What drove them to do that? Yep.
What's one thing you remember about your childhood bedroom?
I mean, I can like 100% picture it in my head. I think the coolest thing that like I did to my bedroom was I was like, I really want surround sound speakers in my bedroom. For like what reason, I have no idea. But that's like a memory I have of like buying that. And like I had like a little business. I made some money. I was like, I'm going to buy surround sound speakers for my bedroom. Like, this is going to be so cool. And in hindsight, I'm like, it was so unnecessary.
But a high-tech room, even from the time you were a kid.
Yes, exactly. This goes for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What's one of your prized possessions?
My prized possessions. Honestly, I just like, there's just like certain like t-shirts that I have that I've just had forever that I'll just like never give up. And like, honestly, some of them are just like, literally is like a black one, but there might be like some like minor detail on it that I've just like loved, and I just like will not get rid of it. And I've worn it to the death of it practically. But I think like those are like some of like my most prized possessions that I could think of.
Awesome. And a couple last for you to wrap it up here. So what does living well mean to you? I
think living well means to be able to try to give yourself that 30,000, I think I mentioned before, that 30,000 foot overview as much as you possibly can, and within like obviously the means of your career, your profession, because that's when I think you really get the perspective on being amazed at probably how much you have accomplished, even when you think you may have accomplished nothing so far. And that always feels pretty good to try to like give yourself a little bit of perspective.
And what inspires you to live better?
My family, just wanting to continue to do good, put that good out into the world, and hopefully it all comes back around.
Awesome. Well, Greg, thank you so much. This has been an awesome conversation, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you to Greg Davidson for welcoming us today. Follow along with Greg and the Lalo team at meetlalo.com, and be sure to check out his new book for kids, A Little Book About Home. I'm Kristen Twyford, and if you enjoyed our conversation today, I hope you'll leave us a review and subscribe. Still to go in Season 1, we have Adrienne Grenier, Danielle Canty, Kate Torgerson, and more. We'll see you next time on Make Yourself at Home. Make Yourself at Home is presented by Nines. household management software that helps you manage your properties and everything that comes with them, so you can make the most of your time at home. Learn more at ninesliving.com.